This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Friday, March 15th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Chuck Schumer says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is an obstacle to peace.
Israel is not a colony of America.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Some developments in two of Donald Trump's legal cases.
I took them very legally.
I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
The father of a Michigan high school shooter learns his fate.
Guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
I'm Jeff McKay.
The former trade advisor to former President Trump's been ordered to report to jail. I'm Jackie Quinn.
On Wall Street, stocks will try to bounce back today from yesterday's sell-off. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
President Biden campaigning in what's believed to be a key Michigan county.
I've never been more optimistic.
I'm Clayton Neville.
And new rules for migrants flying at U.S. airports. All ahead on America in the Morning. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is facing backlash from both sides of the political aisle and the White House, and said it's time for Israelis to elect a new leader, labeling Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu an obstacle to peace. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
This is not only highly inappropriate, it's just plain wrong for an American leader to play such a divisive role in Israeli politics while our closest ally in the region is in an existential battle for its very survival. We need to be standing with Israel, and we need to give our friends and allies our full support.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is an obstacle to peace, and the Israeli people should get to elect a new leader.
I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel. At a time when so many Israelis have lost their confidence in the vision and direction of their government.
In an unusually direct appeal, Schumer called for new elections in Israel, saying Netanyahu has lost his way.
The Netanyahu coalition no longer fits the needs of Israel after October 7th. The world has changed radically since then, and the Israeli people are being stifled right now by a governing vision that is stuck in the past.
It is grotesque and hypocritical for Americans who hyperventilate about foreign interference in our own democracy to call for the removal of a democratically elected leader of Israel.
Senate GOP counterpart Mitch McConnell immediately responded.
Israel is not a colony of America.
And says the U.S. can either respect Israel's decisions or disrespect its democracy at the White House and State Department.
We know Leader Schumer feels strongly about this. I'm certainly letting him speak to it and to his comments.
These are statements made by Senator Schumer, not by the Biden administration.
Okay.
Spokesman John Kirby and Matthew Miller tried to stay out of it, noting the administration's focused on making sure Israel can both protect itself and Gaza's civilians. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
As the Republican presumptive nominee for the third straight election, Donald Trump's legal issues continued to dog his campaign. John Stolnis reports from Washington on some developments yesterday in two of the four cases against him.
The federal judge overseeing his classified documents case rejected a bid by the Trump defense team to throw out the case. Trump was in attendance for the 3.5 hours long proceeding overseen by Judge Eileen Cannon, who was appointed to her spot on the bench by Trump. Trump's lawyers argue the 1978 Presidential Records Act, which requires presidential documents to be turned over to the National Archives and Records Administration, entitles Trump to keep personal notes and papers, and that he could declassify anything he took with him to Mar-a-Lago. They also argued a statute in the act was too vague and open to interpretation, and therefore 32 of the 40 felony counts under that statute should be thrown out. In an interview on Newsmax Wednesday, Trump claimed there's a double standard against him.
There's something going on because they're going after me viciously. Then all of a sudden it comes out that Biden took 10 times the number of documents that I did. And I took them very legally. and I wasn't hiding them. We had boxes on the front of and a lot of those boxes had clothing and we're moving out, okay? Unfortunately, we're moving out of the White House.
In a statement, Judge Cannon said it was difficult to see a dismissal of the indictment on those grounds. It's not clear yet when this case will go to trial. Meanwhile, up north in New York, prosecutors say they're open to delaying the start of the Stormy Daniels hush money trial a month in order to give the Trump legal team more time to examine tens of thousands of new documents that have been handed over in the last few weeks. Jury selection is set to begin on March 25th. Trump's lawyers want the trial delayed 90 days or to be thrown out entirely due to issues during the discovery process. John Stolnis, Washington.
Michigan father convicted in school shooter case. That and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. We have an active weather pattern out there in your national forecast. And at the map, AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton has details.
The west will remain active, particularly the southwest, with a slow-moving disturbance over the region, bringing rain and mountain snow around the Four Corners area. But showers will extend into parts of Southern California as well today, allowing much of northern and eastern Colorado to start clearing out some of Thursday's impressive snowfall. However, the northwest looks to be rather dry today and throughout the weekend overall, as a strong area of high pressure holds in place, with a storm holding firm to the south, holding up the progress of any disturbances that would try to reach the northwest in the coming days. Farther east, severe thunderstorms are in the forecast once again, with the risk for flooding downpours, damaging winds, hail, and even some tornadoes in South Texas and points east through parts of Tennessee, South Carolina, Louisiana, Alabama, and Georgia. Showers and some steadier rain from this storm will reach as far to the north as the mid-Atlantic and even the northeast, with rain and areas of snow pushing offshore through the day in New England. Just ahead of that severe weather, all but far northern Florida should remain dry today, with temperatures still near record highs around the 90-degree mark in spots across the Florida peninsula. Much of the northern and central plains will be dry today, but a clipper crossing southern Canada brings more clouds to the far north and some late-day rain or snow in mainly northern Minnesota, reaching the upper peninsula of Michigan overnight. This storm tracks across the Great Lakes on Saturday and the Northeast on Sunday with a shot of colder air and some snow. In Nashville, Tennessee, morning rain and thunder taper to an afternoon shower with a high of 69. It will be mild in Medford, Oregon with sun and a high of 71. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A Michigan jury has convicted the father of a school shooter in a landmark case where the parents were found guilty for their son's actions. America in the Morning's Jeff McKay reports.
James Crumbly, the father of the teenager who killed 4 students at a Michigan high school in 2021, was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in a trial that comes a month after the shooter's mother was convicted of the same charges.
Count 1, involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin, guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Count 2, involuntary manslaughter as to Tate Meir, guilty.
Crumbly was convicted of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, a charge that carries a maximum punishment of up to 15 years in prison. Jury deliberations that concluded Thursday came more than 2 years after his son Ethan Crumbly, then 15, used a handgun to kill 4 students and wound 7 others at Oxford High School in 2021. Ethan Crumbly was sentenced to life in prison without parole 2 years later. I'm Jeff McKay.
An appeals court has denied a request from a former Trump administration official to stay out of jail. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports that the final denial for Peter Navarro means he must report to prison next week.
A federal appeals court in Washington says Peter Navarro cannot remain free. While he challenges his conviction on charges, he refused to cooperate with a congressional investigation into the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Navarro was found guilty of defying a subpoena for documents and a deposition and has been ordered to report to prison by March 19th. He's the second Trump aide sentenced to prison. Advisor Steve Bannon, who went before a different judge, was allowed to remain free pending his appeal. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Sell-off on Wall Street, and TikTok has a prospective U.S. buyer. That and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. Self-checkout lanes are becoming the norm in supermarkets and other businesses, but Target takes it to another level starting Sunday. The retailer is going to roll out express self-checkout lanes at nearly 2,000 stores nationwide, with customers only allowed to purchase 10 items or less. While some like the convenience, others not so much. A study published last month found that 2/3 of shoppers said they experienced a technical failure while using a self-checkout machine, and some retailers say they noticed higher rates of shoplifting as opposed to traditional checkout methods. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger has a check of Friday business. Jessica, what's expected today on Wall Street at the opening bell?
We'll try to rebound today from losses yesterday after two hot inflation reports this week, one at the consumer level and one at the wholesale level. The PPI, Producer Price Index, was a lot higher than expected.
February PPI headline number expected to be up 0.3%. Zoom, 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 up double. Up 0.6%.
CNBC's Rick Santelli. Now, investors have been spending months watching inflation come down, both for consumers and at the wholesale level, but it's wobbling now, which is exactly what Fed Chair Jay Powell said would happen. When the Fed meets on interest rates next week, it has no reason to really cut them.
Overall, we're still in a disinflationary trend, but I do think it delays the timing of a Fed rate cut.
Nationwide mutual economist Kathy Bostjancic on CNBC. One hot number investors liked yesterday, February retail sales after a lackluster January. Consumer spending makes up about 2/3 of U.S. economic growth, and spending had its biggest increase last month since last September. Airlines are getting back in gear after more than 1,000 flights were canceled because of snow, especially in Denver. Multi-state lottery jackpots are huge this weekend. Tonight's Mega Millions jackpot at $792 million. Tomorrow night's Powerball jackpot at $600 million. Cocoa, the commodity, hit a new record high, making it more likely consumers will end up paying higher chocolate prices.
We have at least one tire kicker interested in purchasing TikTok.
Former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin announced on CNBC that he wants to buy TikTok.
When I was Treasury Secretary, I chaired CFIUS, and CFIUS approved, and I had President Trump sign an order that TikTok had to be sold. And I continue to believe that. So I think the legislation should pass, and I think it should be sold. I understand the technology. It's a great business, and I'm going to put together a group to buy TikTok.
You're trying to buy TikTok?
I am, because this should be owned by U.S. businesses. There's no way that the Chinese would ever let a U.S. company own something like this in China.
Mnuchin with Squawk Box anchor Andrew Ross Sorkin. Now, the divest or sell TikTok bill passed the House, heads to the Senate. TikTok critics say the app is a security threat, mining the data on the phones of more than half the U.S. population, and can be used for propaganda and to influence elections. On today's watch list, we're going to get the latest on industrial production and consumer sentiment. Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour concert film premieres on Disney Plus today.
Thank you, CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Immigrants face new federal requirements flying domestically when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. President Biden went on the road and spent Thursday campaigning in Michigan. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
President Biden spending time this week in Wisconsin and in Michigan, two states significant to his 2020 election.
And that's why I swear to God, I've never been more optimistic about America's future than today. Not because I'm president, because we're one of those inflection points in history. We really are.
The president pointed to a growing number of jobs in the U.S. and shrinking inflation as he insists he's steering the country in the right direction in 2024.
Well, I came to office determined to uphold the duty that gets us through one of the toughest periods in our nation's history. And we have. And now we're building a future America full of possibilities. building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. That top down stuff, not a whole lot landed on my dad's kitchen table growing up.
Biden met with city council members in Saginaw, Michigan, just days after he secured the Democratic presidential nomination. He also met with Michigan families at a local golf course. Saginaw's population just under 50% black as the president pushes his message in African-American communities. The Biden campaign paying close attention to Michigan, where over 100,000 Democrats voted uncommitted in the state's February primary. That was a protest vote against Biden's support for Israel and its war with Hamas. I'm Clayton Neville.
A new federal airport security requirement for immigrants traveling without passports on domestic flights is prompting confusion for both migrants and advocacy groups. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
The federal government has started requiring migrants without passports to submit to facial recognition technology to take domestic flights. The change prompted confusion this week among immigrants and advocacy groups in Texas. Several migrants with flights out of South Texas on Tuesday told advocacy groups that they thought they were being turned away. The migrants included people who had used the government's online appointment system to pursue their immigration cases. The Transportation Security Administration did not say when TSA made the change, only that it was recent and not in response to a specific security threat. Norman Hall, Washington.
America in the Morning for Friday, March 15th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Stephen Mnuchin says he's putting together an investor group to buy TikTok. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Floating the idea of a 4-day work week. I'm Clayton Neville.
A federal judge has rejected a bid by Donald Trump to throw out his classified documents criminal case. I'm Norman Hall.
Vice President Kamala Harris visited an abortion clinic in Minnesota. I'm Sue Aller.
Massive snowstorm blankets Colorado, tornadoes in the nation's midsection.
President Joe Biden says he opposes a planned sale of U.S. steel to Nippon Steel of Japan. Donna Warder, Washington.
Mark Wahlberg and a furry companion hope to make a splash at the box office this weekend. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. America in the Morning continues. There's a risk of severe thunderstorms today, and that snow system in the Rockies is winding down. Here's the national forecast from AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Severe thunderstorms are again in the forecast today, mainly in areas to the south and east of the zone that experienced what was truly a prolific severe outbreak on Thursday, with the risk for hail, damaging winds, flooding downpours, and even the threat for isolated tornadoes shifting into South Texas and points eastward through the southeast and into parts of Tennessee, including much of Louisiana, Alabama, and Georgia as well. Showers and steadier rain in association with this storm will extend as far to the north as the mid-Atlantic and parts of the northeast, with another piece of the storm shifting rain and areas of snow offshore through the day for New England. Ahead of the storm, all but the far northern counties of Florida should remain dry today, with temperatures again near record highs just short of the 90-degree mark in spots across the Florida peninsula. Most of the northern and central plains will be dry today under high pressure, but a clipper tracking across southern Canada will bring more clouds to far northern zones, with a glancing blow of late-day rain or snow for mainly northern Minnesota, extending into the upper peninsula of Michigan overnight. This storm will track through the Great Lakes on Saturday and the Northeast for Sunday, with a shot of colder air and some late-season snow in spots. The west remains stormy as a stalled disturbance over the southwest means rain and mountain snow around the Four Corners region, with showers extending into parts of southern California through the day as much of northern and eastern Colorado finally starts to dig out after truly impressive snowfall. Otherwise, conditions in the northwest look to be rather dry today, with under a robust area of high pressure, with a rather quiet weekend in store throughout the region as the storm track remains to the south. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. One day after the House voted overwhelmingly to force ByteDance's TikTok to either divest itself from China or face a ban in the U.S., former Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin is building an investor group to acquire the popular social media app. Surrounding the latest developments, here's correspondent Jackie Quinn.
We have given TikTok a clear choice. Separate from your parent company ByteDance, which is beholden to the CCP, and remain operational in the United States, or side with the CCP and face the consequences. The choice is TikTok's.
Former U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says he's putting together an investor group to buy TikTok from its parent company. Steven Mnuchin was Treasury Secretary under former President Trump. Now he runs Liberty Strategic Capital.
I think it should be sold. I understand the technology. It's a great business, and I'm going to put together a group to buy TikTok.
You're trying to buy TikTok?
I am, because this should be owned by U.S. businesses. There's no way that the Chinese would ever let a U.S. company own something like this in China.
On CNBC's Squawk Box, Mnuchin says,
I think there could be antitrust issues on that, and this should be something that's independent, so we have a real competitor, and users love it, so it shouldn't be shut down.
He says the popular app, with its Chinese ownership, does pose a security threat to the U.S.
I'm not going to comment on what's today, but I will comment. There's no question that on a forward basis, they have both the ability to influence the data and they have the ability to collect data, which is probably the bigger concern.
The House has overwhelmingly passed legislation that if the ByteDance company doesn't sell off the TikTok app, it would be banned in the United States. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Legislation was introduced this week on Capitol Hill that proposes a shorter work week in America. Correspondent Clayton Neville has details.
The bill would cut the standard work week in America by a day's worth of work, from 40 to 32 hours weekly with no pay cut.
The sad reality is Americans now work more hours than the people of any other wealthy nation.
Senator Bernie Sanders behind the measure.
In 2022, employees in the United States, and I hope people hear this, logged 204 more hours a year than employees in Japan, and they're hardworking people in Japan. 279 more hours than workers in the United Kingdom, and 470 more hours than workers in Germany.
The senator said that despite the long hours,
the average worker in America makes almost $50 a week less than he or she did 50 years ago after adjusting for inflation.
He explained that innovation spanned over decades has created a different reality for Americans today.
Computers, robotics, artificial intelligence, and the huge increase in worker productivity that has been achieved during that time. American workers are now over 400% more productive than they were in the 1940s.
A similar bill was presented in the House recently, and it's a concept that's gaining steam in the U.S. New research by Morning Consult shows that a majority, 87% of U.S. workers, say that they'd be interested in a 4-day work week, and 82% believe that it could be successful in America. I'm Clayton Neville.
For Donald Trump and his legal team in New York, prosecutors have told the judge overseeing the hush money case involving Stormy Daniels that they're willing to delay the trial until late April. In Florida, with Trump in attendance, the federal judge in the former president's classified documents case ruled against dismissing the charges. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
And Judge Eileen Cannon appeared skeptical of a separate effort to scuttle the prosecution ahead of trial. Cannon, who was nominated to the bench by Trump, made clear that she was reluctant to dismiss one of the 4 criminal cases against Trump. She said at one point that it would be quite an extraordinary step to strike down an Espionage Act statute that underpins the bulk of the felony counts against Trump. Prosecutors say the records taken were not personal but were clearly presidential and included top-secret information. I'm Norman Hall.
While President Biden was campaigning in Michigan, Kamala Harris went to Minnesota and, in the process, became the first vice president to visit an abortion provider. Sue Aller reports.
You ready to make your voices heard? Do we trust women? Do we believe in reproductive freedom?
On Thursday in St. Paul, Minnesota, Kamala Harris became the first vice president to visit a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic. Abortion rights have become a prominent topic in the upcoming presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022.
In states around our country, extremists have proposed and passed laws that have denied women access to reproductive health care.
She went on to highlight some of the stories she has heard.
I have heard stories of and have met with women who had miscarriages in toilets.
She also says that some healthcare workers are afraid to provide services.
The healthcare providers there at an emergency room were afraid that because of the laws in their state that they could be criminalized, sent to prison for providing health care.
Harris says her trip to Planned Parenthood was to bring attention to women who have to travel from other states to have abortions. The clinic in St. Paul says out-of-state patients have doubled. I'm Sue Aller.
Getting local law enforcement on the same page as federal immigration authorities. That story and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. America in the Morning continues. I'm John Trout. Colorado's biggest snowfall in 3 years, with the city of Boulder and Denver suburbs receiving a foot and areas near Aspen 2 feet of heavy snow, and it's not over yet. The National Weather Service says that the snow in Colorado will taper off later today. 2 northern Colorado counties have issued disaster declarations, with areas near Fort Collins expected to have as much as 4 feet of snow when the storm subsides. A section of Interstate 70, which was closed yesterday due to the blizzard, has been reopened for today. Another storm system brought thunderstorms and tornadoes into Arkansas and throughout Ohio. In the small town of Winchester, Indiana, at least 3 people are dead when the severe winds crashed through a trailer park. Selma, Indiana, located east of Muncie, was also hit by damaging winds, where emergency management officials said that about half of all the structures in town sustained damage when one eyewitness said the sky turned black and the clouds began spinning. There was also reports of tornadoes and wind damage in several Ohio counties. America in the Morning continues. The Republican-led Tennessee House has advanced a proposal that would require law enforcement agencies in the state to communicate with federal immigration authorities if they discover people are in the country illegally. Lisa Dwyer reports.
The legislation would broadly mandate cooperation in the process of identifying, catching, detaining, and deporting immigrants deemed to be here illegally. Critics say it will create confusion because federal law says it is voluntary for states and local governments to get involved. The vote coincides with efforts in other Republican-led states to inject more state and local involvement in immigration enforcement. Action on the Tennessee bill now moves to the GOP-led Senate floor. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
There was concern on Capitol Hill when a planned sale of Pittsburgh-based U.S. Steel to Nippon Steel of Japan was announced. President Biden's chiming in, saying he's opposed to the agreement. Correspondent Donna Warder has that story.
The president is releasing a statement saying that it's vital that U.S. Steel remain an American steel company that's domestically owned and operated. Biden says in a statement that he does not support the purchase of U.S. Steel by Nippon Steel of Japan, and that U.S. Steel has been an iconic American steel company for more than a century. Biden has made the restoration of American manufacturing a cornerstone of his agenda as he seeks another term in the White House, and he has the endorsement of the AFL-CIO and several other prominent unions. Nippon Steel announced in December that it wanted to buy U.S. Steel for $14.1 billion in cash. Donna Warder, Washington.
A long-since banned activity in Oklahoma may be making a comeback. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports the Sooner State is considering weakening the rules regarding cockfighting.
Oklahoma outlawed cockfighting in 2002. A proposal to weaken penalties has cleared the state house, backed by Anthony DeVore of the Game Fowl Commission.
We have
fentanyl, which is a misdemeanor, and it killed 10,000 people in Oklahoma every year. And I think death by roosters is zero.
There is even video with Governor Kevin Stitt backing the Game Foul Commission.
People that don't like me want to try to bring something up and that kind of stuff. Of course, I'm not for legalizing game cockfighting.
Rooster fighting is illegal at the federal level. Former Oklahoma Attorney General Drew Edmondson says state lawmakers and police may just look the other way.
It's a pretty easy call when 60, 70, 80% of their county voted no on the issue to soft pedal it.
At the time of the ban, 57 of Oklahoma's 77 counties were in favor of keeping cockfighting legal. I'm Ed Donahue.
The FCC is instituting a new program for tech products that meet certain cybersecurity standards with a badge and a QR code to check up on your devices. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
The FCC has instituted a new Cyber Trust Mark program and is moving forward, described as the Energy Star label for the IT world. This voluntary program will include a label for products that meet certain security standards, along with a QR code where customers can scan to find out latest info about how updates work or how long the support window will be. In AI news, Amazon will let sellers paste a link so that their AI can make a product page faster. Sellers will now be able to create an Amazon product page with just a copy and paste click of a link. An Amazon spokesperson said the goal is to help sellers reduce the time it takes to bring a product from a different website onto Amazon. And finally, Spotify now has music videos. This beta feature is accessible from the Now Playing screen for select tracks, but is only available for premium subscribers, but should be rolling out to more markets soon. Leave a comment at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
With Friday Sports on America in the Morning, here's Robert Workman.
The Boston Celtics blocked out the Suns 127-112 last night to become the first team to clinch an NBA playoff spot this season. Jaylen Brown had 37 points. Thunder got by the Mavericks. Oklahoma City and Denver are tied for the best record out west. Jalen Brunson had 45 to lead the Knicks over the Blazers. Rockets waltzed past the Wizards. Clippers sailed past the Bulls. And the Bucks bumped off the 76ers. College basketball conference tournament time wins for number 1 Houston, second-ranked Connecticut, number 4 North Carolina, 6th-ranked Arizona, and number 7 Iowa State. 8th-ranked Creighton lost to Providence in the Big East quarters. Friars guard Devin Carter had a game-high 22.
We want to keep our tournament dreams alive, and we also want to get a Big East championship.
They'll meet number 10 Marquette in the next round. 14 of the 32 automatic bids to the Big Dance have been determined. The remainder will be won this weekend. Then the committee adds 36 at-large teams on Selection Sunday. NHL, the Wild blanked the Ducks. 16 saves for Marc-Andre Fleury. His 75th career shutout. One more puts him in the top 10 all-time. Sabres shut out the Islanders. 21 stops for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, his 5th clean sheet this season. Frederik Andersen made 21 saves as the Hurricanes blew by the Panthers. Bruin shaded the Canadiens on a goal by Jake DeBrusk 25 seconds into overtime.
I thought I was going to get roasted wide by the defenseman. Came in our zone, but Lindy won a big battle, and we just kind of poked it out, and it was a 2-on-1, and I know just to get to the right areas, and it's going to come across. So it was a great pass, and just happy to finish it for the boys.
Elsewhere, the Lightning struck down the Rangers. Braden Point with a hat trick and 3 assists. Maple Leafs flattened the Flyers. Austin Matthews got goal number 55. Wins for the Coyotes, Capitals, Devils, Flames, Penguins, and Senators. NFL, the Bears send a 4th-round pick to the Chargers for 6-time Pro Bowl receiver Keenan Allen. The Chiefs will sign wideout Hollywood Brown to a 1-year deal. And the Seahawks traded for former Commanders quarterback Sam Howell. That's Friday Sports.
Thank you, sir. Robert Workman with sports. When we return on America in the Morning, new hope in curing colorectal cancer, the latest unemployment numbers, and what's new in theaters after these messages. Welcome back here with America in the Morning. The New England Journal of Medicine is reporting that a new blood test intended to detect colorectal cancer performed well in a new clinical study, saying the exam found that the new test correctly detected the existence of colorectal cancer in 83% of people who were already confirmed to have the disease, who were at average risk and not experiencing any symptoms. Right now, the gold standard for detecting colorectal cancer is by performing a colonoscopy. Colorectal cancer is the 3rd most common cancer diagnosed for both men and women. Yesterday's unemployment report came in better than expected, and as correspondent Rita Foley reports, a big drop for new claims in New York helped to keep the numbers down.
Overall, 1.8 million Americans were collecting unemployment during the week that ended March 2nd. That's an increase of 17,000 from the previous week. The unemployment rate is a low 3.9%. It's been below 4% for 25 straight months. That's the longest such streak since the 1960s. Layoffs remain at low levels, but there has been an uptick in job cuts recently, mostly across technology and media. Some of the companies that have announced layoffs recently: Google parent company Alphabet, eBay, TikTok, and the Los Angeles Times. Outside of tech and media, UPS, Macy's, and Levi's also recently cut jobs. I'm Rita Foley.
Heading to the theaters, Mark Wahlberg teams up with a dog at the movies this weekend. Kevin Carr has a sneak peek at Arthur the King.
I'll be the first to admit that I'm an easy mark for a movie about dogs, and the new film, Arthur the King, takes advantage of this.
Meatball? Look, somebody likes my meatballs. Hey, Paw Patrol, we got a race to win.
This inspirational sports film is a true story about a group of athletes led by Mark Wahlberg who encounter a stray dog during a 10-day, 435-mile race in the Dominican Republic.
Let's talk and get the meatballs. 3 days, 200 miles ago.
The dog soon becomes their unofficial mascot and gives them a newfound focus. Wahlberg often balances uplifting stories with his Hollywood blockbusters, and that serves him well. Sure, the first chunk of the movie is all about him, but he eventually defers to his canine co-star for the emotional thrust.
What do you think he went through before he met us?
Whatever it wasn't good.
The first half is the most flawed. The script struggles through tired tropes and cliches as the racing team comes together, overdoing it a bit on their personal motivations.
I raced for 19 years. This is my last chance to win.
But if you're gonna air in a movie, do it early and end with a bang. And sure enough, once the racers bond with Arthur the dog, I was suddenly interested.
This isn't the route on the map.
It's okay. Just follow Arthur.
Yukai, who plays Arthur, is the MVP here. And while the movie hits plenty of familiar beats you've seen in a dozen other dog movies, it hits them quite well.
This dog needs a vet. I don't want you to hurt anymore. He's a fighter.
Arthur the King gets 3.5 meatballs out of 5. I'm Kevin Carr, and that's the way I see it.
That wraps up our show for this Friday, March 15th, 2024. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.